5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Coming to you live. Is Lichtman live? Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Hey, welcome to our very savvy, knowledgeable audience who want something more than the usual spin. I'm going to start with a quotation, which is kind of going to be the theme of this evening.
Okay, cool.
It's from the well-known peace activist Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "In order to rally people, governments need enemies. If they do not have a real enemy, they will invent one." And that is the theme of this show, how the Trump administration is inventing enemies, in effect, anyone who doesn't agree with them, and then threatening to bring down the full force of federal law enforcement upon them.
Wow, that's some scary sounding stuff, Dad.
Yeah, I hate to always be scary. I'd love to come and tell you, our democracy is robust and healthy. We can look forward to free and fair elections.
Right.
Our economy is going to soar.
Yeah.
Our rights and liberties are going to be respected.
Right.
I wish I could tell you that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But you can't.
I can't.
Damn. Okay. Are you ready to get into the first topic, Dad?
I am.
Trump has officially signed National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, also known as NSPM 7, a directive on domestic terrorism that labels certain everyday political beliefs, like, let's say, distrust of government, as possible, quote, indicators of extremism. Civil liberty groups warn it could criminalize dissent and opposition.
Well said. And here's the thing. NSPM 7 has been lost. Another incredible failure of the American media.
Uh-oh.
Yes, our corporate media has been just utterly deficient in keeping us apprised about the threats to our rights and our liberties and broadly to the survival of America's democratic republic. And NSPM 7 has gotten lost.
That's a mouthful, I have to say.
Yes, in the much less consequential but, big furor over the indictment of James Comey and the executive order declaring the mythical Antifa a terrorist organization. Unlike the executive order, which doesn't have real teeth and real operational direction since there's no one to direct it against, this is a national security directive on the part of the president, which mobilizes all of federal law enforcement in pursuit of the threats that it outlines. And I'm going to begin by giving you a little bit of historical perspective. Did you ever hear of the Motion Picture Code of 1930?
No.
It codified all the moral prescriptions of 1920s conservatism, the world of Presidents Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. Donald Trump has resurrected those same prescriptions, that same conservative orthodoxy of nearly 100 years ago in a much more insidious way. Not to police the content of films, as reprehensible as that was, and it's been largely, widely discredited, but to criminalize dissent. That is, in this presidential memorandum, the administration is recasting broad swaths of political expression as criminal conspiracies and mobilizing against it the full weight of federal law enforcement as if confronting organized crime. And he's very explicit about that. As I show in my new book right here, Conservative at the Core, this demonstrates once again that Donald Trump is not the exception to American conservatism, but the very scary culmination of 100 plus years of the American conservative movement. The memorandum, NSPM 7, promulgated on the 25th of September, 2025.
I think we need a new name for it, like Scary Number 7.
I like that, yes, right.
The NSP is too much of a mouthful.
Yeah.
We need something better.
Frightening Number 7.
Put it in the chat if you got a better
Repressive
name.
Number 7, yes.
The terrifying
Number
7.
7.
Something like that.
It brands, quote, anti-fascist rhetoric as a threat. What is anti-fascist rhetoric? It could be anything.
Yeah, what the hell does that mean?
Yes, that's the point. This, as we'll see, this memorandum creates all of these catch-all categories that could encompass anything that this administration, this ruling party, finds unacceptable. That is the hallmark of every tight authoritarian regime in the modern history of the world, to define as unacceptable, lawless, dangerous, any kind of speech that doesn't agree with their own political goals and political orthodoxy. That's what makes it so frightening, and that's what makes it so contrary to the free speech protections of the First Amendment. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, which are explicitly designed to encompass broad ranges of speech and to encompass disagreements among us, which is the sign of a healthy democratic republican. The memorandum declares that such anti-fascist rhetoric, quote, has become the organizing rallying cry used by domestic terrorists to wage a violent assault against democratic institutions, constitutional rights, and fundamental American liberties. As triggered not by any criminal activity, but simply by this so-called anti-fascist speech, which you'll see is any speech that doesn't conform to Trump's political interests and political orthodoxy. He ordered, get this, and I can't understand why the media has not been all over this. He's ordered, quote, all federal law enforcement agencies with investigative authority shall adopt strategies similar to those used to address violent crime and organized crime, and to disrupt and dismantle entire networks of criminal activity. Mind you, he's not talking about actual criminal activity. He's simply talking about disagreeable speech that brings down upon individuals and groups the full might of federal law enforcement agencies. This is something truly unique in all of American history. I'll talk a little bit about the Sedition Act, of a wartime act, the most notorious modern crackdown on speech, and show how this is far more insidious. But we are now punishing not unlawful acts, but ideas and movements that the ruling party deems ideologically dangerous. And these prohibitions closely mirror the conservative orthodoxy of nearly 100 years ago of the Motion Picture Code that scholars have long discredited as an egregious violation of speech. But it doesn't criminalize speech, it just tries to control it for entertainment. This is way more serious, and it's also far worse in that the catchwords of Horrible 7 are much worse even than what was in the Motion Picture Code.
Mom's in the chat. She said she likes Orwellian number 7. That's pretty good.
I love Orwellian number 7.
Yeah.
That's really good. Let's give some examples here.
Okay, Dad.
Of the parallelism and how chilling it is.
Okay.
The code stipulates no picture shall be produced that will lower the moral standards of those who see it. And who decides what those moral standards are?
Trump.
No, this is the code.
Oh, this is the code.
Those who police the code, right?
Right.
And Orwellian 7, I love it, triggers all of this might of the federal government for criminal investigation for speech that represents, quote, hostilities towards those who hold traditional American views on morality. And who is to decide what those traditional American views are? Come on. Trump, the administration.
Oh, you keep
That's the whole point of this. You're missing the whole point.
Why are you getting mad at me?
Because I'm just so frustrated that people have not understood the implications of this.
I was reading the chat. Okay. I thought you were still talking about the 1930s directive.
But that's the whole point, is that there's these catch-all categories, traditional American views on morality, that are to be interpreted solely by Trump and his allies, and that trigger the full law enforcement might of the federal government. The code, back to 1930, insists that, quote, ministers of religion should not be used as comic characters or villains, and religion must not be, quote unquote, lowered in the minds of the audience. Orwellian 7 goes far beyond that. Words, speech that would trigger law enforcement includes, quote, the words anti-Christianity and hostility towards those who hold traditional views of religion. These are, quote, common threads animating this violent conduct. Sam, what is anti-Christianity?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. It's anything that Trump finds Republic. For example, defending gay and lesbian rights could be considered anti-Christianity. Hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on religion. We've talked about this before. What the right wing regards as traditional views of religion are a complete distortion of religion and the teachings of Jesus, focusing on the most peripheral things like gender identity, homosexuality, abortion, and ignoring the grand bulk of Judeo-Christian teachings, which focus on greed, on wealth and those great dangers, on telling the truth, on caring for the sojourner, the poor, the vulnerable. So if you don't agree with how the right wing defines Christianity and religion, guess what? You could be branded as a criminal. Back to the code, it demands that, quote, the sanctity of the institution of marriage in the home shall be upheld, unquote. Orwellian 7 bars as criminal, quote, hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on the family. Sam, what are traditional American views on the family?
White, straight,
husband-led.
Right.
Remember, Trump's darling Pete Hegseth doesn't even believe, or at least posted a video, which indicated not only should women obey their husbands, and, their darling Charlie Kirk said, hey, if Taylor Swift marries Travis Kelce, she's got to forget about all this feminism and just obey her husband. So if you don't think a woman should obey her husband, that could be a violation of traditional American views.
Don't Trump and Hegseth both violate traditional family views? They're both adulterers. Trump slept with a porn star. Hegseth impregnated a woman who wasn't his wife. I mean, they could be the two leading candidates for non-traditional family values, right?
Absolutely right. As we said, we need a new word. We can't even call this hypocrisy anymore. You're right on the money. The code bans what framers viewed as the racial extremism of its time, noting that, quote, miscegenation, sex relationships between black and white races is forbidden, unquote. Orwellian 7 similarly prescribes what the administration views as, quote unquote, extremism on race, the modern version. And we know exactly what they considered to be extremism on race: support of affirmative action, support for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and claims that discrimination is systematic within our society. So if you support any of these things, you can run afoul of the law enforcement might of the federal government. The 1930 Code forbids the portrayal of, quote, sexual perversion, and we know what they meant by that in those days, right?
Homosexuality.
Right, or any inference to it. Orwellian 7 sweeps in, quote, extremism on gender, which we know from this administration would include expressions of support for LGBTQ plus persons.
There's no P in it, but close.
Right. The code stipulates that the use of the flag shall be consistently respectful.
People are asking what you're reading from. You're reading from the 1930s one, or you're reading from the current memorandum? Both. Gotcha.
When I say the code,
it's
1930.
Okay.
When I say Orwell 7, it's the current.
Gotcha.
So the code stipulates, quote, the use of the flag shall be consistently respectful. And, of course, Orwellian 7 goes far beyond this to list among its triggers for law enforcement activity the catch-all category of anti-American expression, which could mean anything that goes against the policies of the administration. This Orwellian 7 is by far the most extreme crackdown on free speech, at least since the Espionage Act of 1918, which was adopted during wartime. We're not at war right now, and was shortly repealed once the wartime emergency was over in 1921. But it goes far beyond the Sedition Act, which focused on criticism of the government and criticism of the war. In other words, focusing on policy. What makes this so frightening is that it outlaws ideas. You don't even have to explicitly be criticizing this administration or its policies. If your speech is interpreted by them as anti-Christian or anti-American or extreme on gender or extreme on race. They also include anti-capitalism here, which can include any critique of big business or any defense of environmental regulations. It, for the first time, criminalizes ideas, and that's what makes it so frightening. And in support of this, they offer absolutely no causal link between these so-called triggers and actual political terrorism. And as we know, the empirical evidence points in another direction. A 2024 study by the Department of Justice, National Institute of Justice, found that since 1900, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left actors, unquote. They found that far-right extremists, quote, took more than 520 lives versus 78 for far-left extremists, unquote. That's a ratio of nearly 7 to 1. And you know what the administration, just before it issued Orwellian 7, did to this study?
No.
They purged
it. Yeah, I did know.
They erased it, so you can't find it
I know.
anymore.
Mom says that Orwellian Memorandum 7 is a little bit more clear. But that's a little bit of a mouth. That's a little bit of a mouthful.
I like Orwellian 7.
The Orwellian. It's a little unclear what we're talking about, but
either one is really good.
We'll keep brainstorming.
Yeah, it is critical that this memorandum be rescued from obscurity and brought to our attention.
What is your hypothesis? Why do you think the media has not brought this to the forefront like you think they should have? What's your hypothesis?
I think there's just so much going on,
right,
that it's easy to miss any one thing.
Fair.
But, the more fearful side of me indicates, that maybe we now have a thoroughly corporate-controlled media is just afraid of going after Trump on something like this. Maybe. They're fearful, that federal law enforcement's going to come down on them, or they'll lose their broadcast license, or, their editorialists or reporters will be prosecuted. This is scary stuff.
Yeah.
Trump is the most powerful person in the world. He commands the most powerful law enforcement apparatus in the world. It's not just the FBI, Sam. It's ICE, which has now been enormously augmented. It's the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives, and a host of other federal law enforcement agencies that could be deployed. So it may be just abject fear on the part of the corporate-controlled media.
Now, is there anything we can do about this? Because, as we said, this isn't a executive order, so can it be shut down by the courts? Can it be overturned by the next president, like an executive order, or not?
It can be overturned by the next president, but that's a long way away.
But
and a lot of damage could be done in 3+ years.
So a judge can't come in and rule it unconstitutional?
Yes, I think I'm not a lawyer, and I always
You're not?
No. And I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express, but I have studied these matters, and absolutely, the court has a right to declare something like this unconstitutional. And by the way, I pointed out several ways in which it's even more insidious than the discredited Sedition Act of 1918. The other thing that makes it so much more insidious, that was an act of Congress, right?
Right.
This is an initiative by one person, solely by the President of the United States. Didn't have to do any debating, compromising, negotiating. He just had to issue it.
Now, why did they pick it as a national security presidential memorandum and not an executive order?
Because a national security presidential memorandum has much more force. Because it specifically directs our national security apparatus on what they must do. Executive orders tend to be more general, like the one against Antifa. This actually mobilizes federal law enforcement, instructs them to act on these triggers like anti-Christianity, anti-Americanism, disrespect for religion, racial or gender extremism, anti-capitalism. This actually mobilizes agencies, so it's much more insidious than the executive order.
And I know you say, when you're trying to fight back against something, you hit the streets, you talk to your representatives, but is there anything unique people can do to combat this? Or
got to go to the courts, and it strikes me as an absolutely clear, unconstitutional abridgment of First Amendment protections. The First Amendment was framed and intended to authorize a broad range of speech. If only speech that was consistent with the orthodoxy and political interests of the regime was permissible, you wouldn't need a First Amendment, right?
Right.
It would be totally unnecessary. The whole point of a First Amendment is to allow a broad range of speech, including speech that challenges and is critical of the ruling government. Remember, this came in the wake of a revolution. And, of course, the purpose of the revolution was to free the North American colonists from the dictatorial control of the British king. And critical to that was a free speech, the right to petition your government, and a free press. And the framers were crystal clear about the critical importance of free speech to their new democratic republic. I'll quote the most renowned of them all, George Washington, right?
Oh, Georgie Porgy.
Yes, who not only was the first president, but you may not know he was the president of the Constitutional Convention.
I did know that.
Yes, okay, cool.
Cool.
Of 1787 that set up our government. Now, he wasn't the greatest rhetorician, so it's not the crispest thing, but it's utterly critical what he said. He said, if men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences, that can invite the consideration of mankind. So he's talking about people being able to talk about things that are critically important to all of us. Okay, so if men are to be precluded from offering their opinions on matters of consequence, then, quote, reason is of no use to us. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent may we be led like sheep to the slaughter. This is Washington. He's not an alarmist.
Georgie Porgy.
He's not an extremist. But he warned, if in fact you preclude people from expressing their opinion on matters of consequence, then in fact freedom of speech becomes meaningless and we become a herd of sheep subject to slaughter. Just an incredible statement by George Washington. The government may lawfully punish criminal conduct, but as the framers made clear, and as numerous Supreme Court decisions have made clear, it cannot imprison ideas. It cannot prescribe unpopular beliefs. It cannot transform legitimate political opponents into felons by administrative fiat, which is exactly what Orwellian Memorandum 7, with its vague categories, expansive reach, and executive enforcement threatens to do, to impose precisely the kind of ideological conformity the Constitution was designed to prevent. A lot of conservative justices, and I respect them for this, have said that they believe that you must interpret the Constitution in line with the plain meaning of its provisions and the intent of its framers. It seems to me, if you are to be consistent with that, you can reach no other conclusion. It's not a matter even of, debate that Orwellian Memorandum 7 clearly violates the First Amendment of the Constitution, its plain meaning, the intent of its framers.
All right, we should move on because we just spent half an hour on one topic.
But this topic is of paramount importance.
I agree. I didn't mean it to dismiss the topic. I just said it to be like, we got to move on, sir.
Okay.
South Carolina judge Diane Goodstein, her $1.5 million home was torched in a suspected arson just weeks after her ruling against the Trump administration, sparking fears of retaliation.
This is really scary. We don't know if that was triggered by her ruling against the Trump administration. And this is not speech attacking the administration or anything like that. It's a court ruling. It's a legal opinion.
I believe she ruled on whether or not the administration could have access to voter information.
Personal voter information. Yeah, this is just extraordinary. The administration is trying to coerce the states in giving them our personal voter files with all our personal information. And you think they're doing this for good government purposes? They're doing it for targeting people who they think would vote against them to try to undermine their right to vote. They tried this in the first term with their so-called fraud commission, which totally collapsed since they couldn't demonstrate any substantial fraud, and now they are at it once again. So that is chilling unto itself, and equally chilling is at least the possibility that her ruling triggered this. I believe her husband and kids were there, and quite luckily they escaped only, with minor injuries, I believe, but they could have been killed. This was serious. And, of course, in Orwellian 7, Trump outlines some examples of political violence. Does he outline any examples of political violence from the right?
No.
Not even the murder of the former Speaker of the House and her husband in Minnesota, the attack on the husband of Nancy Pelosi, and so many others. Those don't exist. The only thing that exists is, violence against the right. And as we saw, over a long period of time, so the study is very stable, very substantial, a 7-to-1 ratio of right-wing versus left-wing terror.
Our next topic, Oops, I just showed everybody the topics.
Oh.
Oh, I did something. Hold on. Sorry, folks. Where was I?
You just finished arson.
Right. Attorney General Pam Bondi clashed with Democrats in a tense hearing, dodging questions about Epstein and whether or not she has weaponized the Justice Department.
This was one of the most astounding hearings I've ever seen. She didn't answer any questions. You know, she was asked, instead she personally attacked the questioners, deflected to something utterly irrelevant. So when she was asked about Trump, explicitly calling for the prosecution of Comey, violating the supposed firewall between the White House and justice, she didn't answer it. She said, Donald Trump is very transparent and always expresses, what he believes and, has been saying these things for a long time. Totally irrelevant. When she was queried about sending troops to or National Guard to Chicago by Senator Durbin from Illinois, she said, if you cared, do you care as much about keeping Chicago safe as you do in your hatred of Donald Trump? Utterly insulting, inflammatory, and having nothing to do with answering the question. She wouldn't answer questions about these allegations that their deportation czar, their ICE czar Homan, was videotaped taking a $50,000 bribe.
I laugh because it's just so ridiculous.
Unbelievable. They started talking about, what Biden did, umpteen years ago, floating conspiracy theories about January 6th, but not substantively answering a single critical question, but instead adopting the Donald Trump playbook. It's worked for Trump. She thinks it's going to work for her. Deflect, obstruct, attack, insult. That's what this was all about. A travesty for an Attorney General of the United States to behave in this way.
Good old Pamela Bondi, right?
Yes, remember I predicted that. I said Gates was a feint, a fall guy, and that he would point someone as bad or worse like Pam Bondi who didn't have the same baggage.
Right. How are you feeling, by the way? People want an update on your
I'm
surgery.
doing really well. It's a long, slow recovery. 5 more months in the sling.
No, 5 more weeks.
Weeks. Yes, thank you.
God.
Oh, my God.
I don't know if I could take that
I was going to say,
either.
and maybe as long as 5 months for a full recovery when I can go back to my intense competitive running and hopefully return to the Senior National Olympics, which will be held in 2027, but I have to qualify in Maryland next year in 2026. So I do need to get back to it as soon as I can, but you can't rush it.
But your doctor and your physical therapist have both said that you're doing as good as you possibly could be, given the context.
Given it all, I'm doing as well as possible, but it's a long, slow process. Thank you, Sam.
Our next topic.
By the way, who's been taking care of me through all this? Sam. He has been amazing, helping me with showering, with my clothes, with getting my sling on and off, with doing my exercises, with feeding me. He has just been amazing. And so too, of course, is his extraordinary mom, Karen Strickler, who's been cooking up a storm of wonderful food and been incredibly supportive throughout this. So thank goodness I have this kind of amazing care right here in our home.
Oh, that's nice of you to say. You ready for our next topic?
I am. We should wrap it up, though, pretty quick.
The Supreme Court has... do you want to know what topics we still have left?
Just do it. I'll get through them in a minute or two. I think I know what they are.
The Supreme Court has declined to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's appeal, leaving her sex trafficking conviction and 20-year sentence in place.
As Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm pretty familiar with the case. As well they should. This was a very righteous decision. It upheld a Court of Appeals decision. She is not a victim. She was convicted of some of the most horrible crimes imaginable. And yet, this administration has treated her with kid gloves, transferring her from a normal type of prison to, one of these minimum security prison type farms where she has all kinds of privileges and will serve time that is much less hard than we should. Trump has even refused to flatly say, I would not pardon her. He said I could. He didn't say he would, but he didn't come out and say he wouldn't. They questioned her because they thought they could help their case regarding the Epstein matter. It's just been reprehensible. They've accused Democrats with no evidence of pedophilia. And here they have a convicted pedophile who they're treating with kid gloves.
That's ridiculous. People are showing a lot of love in the chat, so thank you all for that.
Thank you.
The CDC now recommends people consult a health professional before getting a COVID vaccine, signaling a shift in federal guidance.
This is, I run out of words when to describe how despicable what this administration is doing. This is going, in my view, I'm not a doctor, but I've read a lot about this. This could cost lives because vaccines save lives. And when you put barriers in the way of getting totally safe, validated vaccines that have worked to save lives, it's going to diminish vaccination, which according to the experts could well threaten people's lives to no end other than satisfying the quack science that RFK Jr. has been promoting for decades. It's just astounding that we have someone like this as the chief health officer of the United States. And if you read anything about this, you can see every reputable medical scientific organization that, studies this, specializes in this, has denounced what RFK Jr. is doing.
You often say what you're not. You're not a doctor. You're not a lawyer. You don't know about the opera.
That's about it.
That's it. Okay.
That's about it. Yeah. I am a doctor, though.
True.
Not a certain kind of
You're
doctor.
not an MD, but you are a doctor. When
I was on Tic-Tac-Dough in 1981, I was the big television money winner that year. I won $110,000 in cash and prizes, beat 20 opponents, was on for weeks, and the host was just passed away. Wink Martindale. Great guy, but not the brightest bulb in the shed. And it took him at least a week to try to figure out, no, I'm not that kind of doctor. I can't help you, with your bursitis.
That's hilarious. Dad, Trump is under fire for a disturbing metaphor he used about Democrats delivering this in front of thousands of U.S. Navy sailors.
Yeah. Our military is supposed to be non-political. Again, that was the absolute intent of the framers, because one of their great worries, and Trump and his conservative allies who claim to be, so much the students, so much adhering to the ideas, philosophy of the framers, just ignore it when it doesn't work for them. One of their great fears was the politicization of the military, that the military's got to be totally non-political, totally non-partisan.
What did he say? He said that
they're a gnat
on your shoulder.
Yeah,
that needs to be dealt with.
And we need to take care of them. Yeah. In front of the military, who Hegseth just said, what you guys do is kill people and break things, and you're supposed to take care of the Democrats. It's chilling. It's not only the politicization of the military, but it's directing the military explicitly against Trump's political enemies. Again, something that was anathema to the framers of our democratic republic.
That's a big word.
Anathema.
I don't even know what that means, to be honest.
What do you think it means? If I say it's
unspeakable, or
totally against.
Right.
Right.
All right, our last topic before we head into questions. Trump hinted furloughed federal workers may not get back pay after the shutdown, breaking decades of precedent and stoking worker fears.
It's not just breaking precedent, it's breaking the law. But has Trump ever cared about the law?
No.
No. And I believe the act was passed in 2019, establishing that furloughed workers would, once the government shutdown ends, get back pay, as they have in past, right? Says decades of precedent. 2019, who was president and would have signed that law?
In 2019?
Yeah.
DJT.
Exactly. It's his own damn law that he now wants to. And this is part of, their MO. Inflict maximum cruelty on federal workers who you despise, on undocumented immigrants, Their beloved Charlie Kirk even said, empathy is something, we need to get rid of. It stands in our way. And they represent the opposite of empathy, the cruelty. They don't care one way or another about the human effects of what they do. And that's really sad. Supposedly for, these profoundly religiously guided people.
Trump somehow convinced Americans that he was this great jobs president, at least what we've seen so far. He might be the worst jobs president we've ever had in terms of what he's done to the federal workforce. I mean, he's basically treated them like a piece of poop on his shoe in terms of what terrorists have done so far to American businesses. I mean, he might be the worst ever.
Could be. He's up there with Herbert Hoover, who presided over the Great Depression of the 1930s. But he's right up there. He's destroyed the job market. There is no job market right now.
The job market is the same as it was in 2020 today.
Yeah.
And we know what happened in 2020.
Yes.
A giant global pandemic. So that's a pretty bad sign.
Yeah. Can you grab me my water?
Yes. Right away, sir.
Thank you. And all right. You can get rid of these papers. I'm done with them. Oh! As you can see, we don't just talk off the top of our heads and pontificate on this show. We do our research.
Right.
And we give you... Where else are you going to hear about the parallels between the Motion Picture Code of 1930 and the Orwellian Memorandum 7 of 2025? You're not going to get that kind of stuff anywhere else. Anywhere.
All right. Let's do some housekeeping. Before we do that, we've got 1,100 people watching. I can't tell how many likes. YouTube changed the interface today.
Like us.
Yeah, I don't know how many likes we got, but...
Whatever.
Make sure you like the stream. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Click that notification bell so you know we're live. Pretty big announcement coming today on the...
Big.
Housekeeping. We are changing the format of our show. So, obviously now we go live twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays to everybody. That's our format. Our new format is going to be video-based and pre-recorded. So essentially what you'll get is a new video from us every day. It'll be pretty much the exact same format as we have now, but each topic will be its own video. So for example, the NSPM 7 topic will be its own video. The South Carolina judge will be its own video. Pam Bondi will be its own video. And you might ask why we're doing this, because we need to adapt to grow. The channel has, to be completely honest with you, a little bit stagnant. And YouTube is a video platform, and if you look at all of our comparable channels, that is the format they run on. It is not really a live platform. While it helped us grow a lot, it's sort of stagnated. So look, there's risk involved, and maybe it won't work, and maybe we'll be back here in lives. But in order to keep this channel going, we need a little bit more momentum. We need a little bit more growth. So we are switching to video formats. So the show, we're going to record the same way, and we'll just clip it into essentially 3 mini episodes. And I think you'll enjoy it just as much. I don't think there'll be any real difference.
I hope one exception to pre-recording.
Yeah, let me finish my thought.
Sorry.
I hope you'll continue to support us no matter what the format is. And the thing is, we like doing the lives, we enjoy it, but unfortunately, we sort of have to. We are at the mercy of the platform that we serve, or that we broadcast on. Yeah. And I think the live format has sort of run its course at this point. The good news is, the lives aren't going away completely. So on Thursday nights, we will still be live for members only. So this is more important than ever to become a member today. So Thursday evenings, we haven't decided on a time yet. We might do a poll within the members to see exactly what time you all want to do. But there will be a members only live every Thursday where we will be taking your questions. It's going to be sort of like the second half of the show, but as its own members only live on Thursdays.
Yeah, as Sam says, that really highlights the benefits of membership, which is nothing. It's cheaper than a milkshake to be a member for a month on Lichtman Live.
There you go.
And much healthier than a milkshake, too.
And, I know this might disappoint some people. Some people love the live format, but you have to understand, if you want the show to keep going, we have to grow at this point. We can't keep the stagnation. And we got to change and adapt to make that happen. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. But we got to try. And if you become a member,
you still get the live format.
This. And somebody said, why not both? Because that's a lot of work. to do two live shows plus separate videos every week. We're not trying to put too much work on him. He's an old fart. He's starting.
Yeah, I could not do more. I'm sorry. It's just not possible.
Right. So this format will be starting next week. So we'll still have our regular show on Thursday, but starting next week, we're going to try this new format. So please keep watching. It's going to be the same exact show. It's just going to be uploaded, pre-recorded a few hours before, and uploaded as a video. Share the videos. They'll be much more easy to digest. They'll be 8 to 20 minutes long instead of an hour-long episode.
And become a member.
And become a member,
so you can benefit from the best of both worlds.
I believe the membership is $4.99 a month, and someone just told me, tell us how to join. I don't see what you guys see, so unfortunately I don't exactly know how to join. If anybody in the chat knows structures for memberships, also try to Google it. Just Google how do I become a member. Again, I can't see
someone
it from
in the chat side. Must know.
Yeah,
because we have lots of members out there.
Yeah. And again, this isn't because we don't like the lives, we don't enjoy the live chat. It's just that we think this will help the channel grow. We think YouTube, the algorithm does better with videos than it does with live streams.
And we'll still have an opportunity to interact with us.
Yes.
All right, we should get on. We're almost out of time.
Okay. Wow, an $80 donation from George Politis. They say, they are using religion to trick the evangelicals to come over and join them. They've already joined them, haven't they, Dad?
Oh, yeah. 90% of evangelicals, white evangelicals, voted for Trump, a record, even topping Ronald Reagan in his landslide in 1984. And this was in a close election. But they keep using the club of religion to keep them in line. And that's extremely important, because if they lose that constituency, then they're going to fall apart. So Trump has to be this phony exponent of religion, although, as you say, he is the poster child for anti-Christianity, not the poster child for Christian morality.
No doubt. Some people are saying I can't afford a membership, but that's the good news, is that all the content you're getting here is still going to be up for free on YouTube. None of the content you're getting today, it's still all going to exist. So you don't need to worry if you can't afford a membership. We get that. Our content will still be for free. Good news. All right.
Right. The membership just entitles you to that 130-minute segment.
Yes.
And if you can't afford it, please, it would help us a lot.
Yeah. Thank you to Philip H. for gifting some memberships.
Philip H. is one of our great supporters.
This is from Honolulu Water and viewer Chili Ray. They say, doesn't Congress have to approve this sort of memorandum?
No, that's the point. This is a presidential memorandum issued in his authority as commander-in-chief. National security memorandum do not need to be approved by Congress. That was one of the big distinctions I made between Orwellian 7 and the Sedition Act. As bad as it was, at least was approved and authorized by Congress.
Good evening. I know you are not lawyers, but what I wonder is why these illegal searches and seizures of American citizens with no warrants are not being challenged. Why aren't the DOJ and ICE being challenged in court in Illinois, California, Washington, D.C., and other places?
There have been some challenges on the part of U.S. citizens illegally seized by ICE, but these are difficult challenges to bring because it's very difficult to sue the government. You've got to prove egregious, intentional wrongdoing, not just a mistake, and you've got to prove some damages. So these are really tough lawsuits, which is one of the reasons why ICE can pretty much do what it wants and not be held accountable to anything.
What do you think will happen with the military invasion of blue states? Can it be stopped or will it get worse? Who could have ever imagined this a year ago?
Anyone who believes in America's democratic republic, who believes in our Constitution and our First Amendment, could never have imagined this. And I do believe it's being challenged by the courts. There was an injunction in Portland prohibiting Trump from sending federal troops to Portland. Of course, that will go up the line. I think eventually this issue of being able to send National Guard or troops to American cities without invoking the Insurrection Act will get before the Supreme Court. The problem is what happens if Trump then invokes the Insurrection Act. That would, override all of those court decisions, and the whole process would have to start again. It's really chilling, and he's already floated the idea that he could, in utter violation of the intent of the Insurrection Act, which is to put down real rebellions like the Whiskey Rebellion, or of course the Rebellion of the Southern States, not to do what Trump is doing in American cities. But again, that would start a whole new round of litigation.
Thank you to Philip H. for 5 more gifted memberships, and also Kathy J. for gifting 5 memberships.
Very nice.
Thank you, guys. It's helping more people access the members live stream on Thursdays. Thank you. $5 donation from Blakeman. They say, quote, is it clear why some of history's demagogues faded, for example, McCarthy, whereas others had to be forced out, for example, Hitler? In which category is Trump?
He's not McCarthy. McCarthy eventually turned against his own party, turned against the Republicans. He turned against the Eisenhower administration, and that really led to his political downfall. Trump obviously has not done that. He has molded the Republican Party in his own image, or put another way, he has fit the historical pattern of conservatism within the Republican Party. I never compare anyone to Hitler. You've heard me say that many, many times. But Trump is also portraying himself as the champion of ordinary Americans and attempting to rally ordinary Americans to his cause and to his political program. So that's quite different from McCarthy. And also, as powerful as he was, McCarthy did not have the powers of the presidency behind him and did not have the bully pulpit of the presidency.
Professor, should we not be worried about President Trump's health? and that J.D. Vance is always present in most of his public engagements. We never saw those with Biden, Harris, Obama, Biden, Bush, Cheney, etc., etc. This presidency looks weird, and Trump seems to lack energy by the day. His Navy Day and Generals meeting are typical examples. What do you think, sir?
Well, obviously, as we said, I'm not that kind of doctor, so I can't comment with expertise on his health. But those who are experts have worried about his health, and I think that is a legitimate worry on the part of the American people, that, it's certainly conceivable his health could fail him sometime in the next 3.5 years. I'm not issuing that as my opinion. I am simply saying enough people who are knowledgeable in these areas, unlike us, have warned about that.
$20 donation from Sharon Novak. They say,
Nice.
Tonight, I'm becoming more fearful of martial law, insisting on putting the military in states, and the fact that Republicans don't appear to be worried about losing in the midterms makes me think they have a plan.
That's a legitimate fear. We've talked about that a lot. There is reason to worry whether or not there will be a free and fair election in 2026. And there's certainly some chilling things going on. We talked about the Trump administration demanding personal voter information from the states. We've talked about him by fiat deploying the National Guard or the military to American cities, which could be a prelude to deploying them to polling places in 2026. He has tried to end the practice of mail-in voting, which is the law in every single state of the Union. He's tried to establish documentary proof of citizenship for voting. So there are certainly some real storm signs on the horizon.
Thank you to the Disney Doctor for donating 5 memberships.
Nice.
Jim Blowers says,
One of our good friends.
Yeah. Should Jay Jones step down as candidate for Attorney General of Virginia, given his 116-mile-per-hour speeding and comments he made on social media?
I certainly think so. If you're going to go after Republicans for their record, you should apply it equally to Democrats. And seems to me and this is just my personal opinion, I'm not a Virginian, I'm not following this that closely, but certainly one could make a case that he should step down.
What time is it? My phone just died. All right, we have another minute.
All right, let's take one more question.
This is from $10 donation from The Switchboard. Can you talk about Bari Weiss being appointed editor for CBS News and implications for free press moving forward? Very concerned about free press. Will the Brendan Carr hearings make any difference?
Will what make any difference?
The Brendan Carr hearings. Brendan Carr is
he's the FCC
guy.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. I don't know enough about her to comment in detail, but from what I've read, there are reasons to be worried. Any appointment that seems to be that Trump and his allies seems to be supportive of is good reason to worry. We've already seen these corporate controlled media outlets caving in to Trump. As we saw in the Bondi hearing, we're going to get nothing out of Brendan Carr. I suspect he's going to do the same thing: deflect, obstruct, attack, and provide nothing of substance.
I can comment on this a little bit, being a media guy.
Yes,
myself.
You're much more knowledgeable about the media than I am.
I think this is the first sign that the conglomeration of some of these media companies that we've been talking about a lot is going to make real changes in our media. Whether you like Bari Weiss or not, she's a drastic change to traditional leadership at CBS. And if you don't know the whole story, Skydance, which is owned by the Ellison family, bought Paramount, and now, which includes CBS News, and now they have appointed her as.
And they also bought her outfit, the Free Press.
Yes, they also.
They bought her outfit and then made her head.
Yes, so at the very least, it shows us that they are going to make real substantive changes.
Yes, and I have my real doubts about this appointment, but I don't know enough at this point about it, but it's questionable.
Yeah, I don't
at the least.
I don't know enough about her to comment on her, but again, yeah, I think when you see these rich guys controlling large swaths of our media, they're going to make big changes, and you might not like them, and that's a little scary.
Yes, their big changes will be in their interests,
right,
not necessarily yours. And that's really scary.
Right.
So, Sam, Thursday we're keeping the same format.
Thursday's the same, 9 p.m. live, and then starting next week on Tuesday, you'll start seeing our videos pop up on your feed. And again, please like them, or please click them, watch them, like them, share them. It'll really help us grow.
And next Thursday we'll have our first members only.
And next Thursday we'll have our first members only show.
Yes.
All right.
So next week it'll be our clips and our members only show. They're
not really clips. They're sort of, they're just a new format. Clips are more like you take things from this show and clip them. It's a full video.
Right, full posted videos.
Yeah. Yes. All right, I want to give some quick shout-outs to people who donated but didn't get on air. Junaid Naya, Comic Fan, Blazers, Philip H. Mandalus, Jeff Patora, and Douglas
Dougal.
Grimes. Oh, Dougal.
That's Dougal.
Oh, our buddy. Our
yes.
Dougal.
Our Dougal, yes.
Oh, what did he donate? I didn't even see. Where's Dougal? Anyway, shout out to Dougal. I can't.
Yes.
There's so much on our Google Doc. I don't know what he said. Anyway, shout out to Dougal. He's our...
Absolutely. We love Dougal.
Yes. All right. Thank you all for watching. Please trust us in this format change. You won't hate us, I promise. And if it does go bad and you don't like the decision, good news, we'll be back live. So it's a win-win. Either it'll work and we'll grow and that'll be good for everybody, or it won't work and we'll be back live. Win-win.
I firmly believe, Sam, this is a brilliant idea of yours. Not mine, it was Sam's, and I believe it will work.
All right.
And final word.
Oh, yes. Dad, what are your final words to the people?
Just remember, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty.
Okay. Thank you all. See you Thursday.